58, 17, 11.
Or 1711, okay.
Okay, you guys should all have a green light. So Matt, what I'll let you do is start off with starting the meeting and then telling them, not going back.
All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled planning commission meeting for the work session for Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Weir,
All right,
Mason, Walker, Cottle,
Here.
Hallett,
Here.
Banna, Correll. Okay.
All right. What we're going to discuss tonight, we're cleaning up the zoning text amendment. We're going to talk about TC and buffers and a few items, but what we discussed tonight, the Planning Commission will not be going back to discuss when the full commission is in person.
Okay.
All right, Emily.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so we've decided tonight we're going to skip ahead and discuss some of the buffers and other requirements in the site plan ordinance in order to not rehash the zoning uses and other regulations in the B1, B2, and I1. So we're at section 58-9. 58-9? Is that where you're at, Bob?
There it was. Transitional commercial.
yeah. 58, 17, 11. We need to add a column to that matrix. I would suggest between R2 and B1.
5811, that's B2.
17.
58,
58.
17, 11.
Landscaping, yeah. Okay, so this table was originally created in order to show the
Keep going.
So these tables were created in order to show alternating landscaping options when you came in for a site plan. Scroll down a little bit more. They give images of what these would look like. Going further. Keep going. More. More. And then you have your buffer yards. So the buffer yards is the amount of space required between different zoning districts in order to properly screen and buffer between them. So one of the things that we noticed is we have recently in 2018 had 3 properties in town be rezoned to transitional commercial. However, when one of them was recently developed, the wine tasting room, to give you an example, they were not required to put in a buffer yard per this table because of the fact that we just didn't account for a transitional commercial zoning district. So what we did is we actually worked with the applicant. We came to an agreement. They agreed it needed buffering, and we took care of it that way. So what we want to do is to avoid some of the other issues that we're having now with them backing up to a residential use. We want to be proactive, put in the proper screening, and then label it appropriately if it's opaque, transparent, if they get an option, and what size. So my recommendation would be to consider the 25-foot transparent screen or semi-transparent. And the reasoning that I kind of recommend this is because you would have a proposed use of residential or commercial. Since it's transitional commercial, you can have either. And then you would be abutting up to possibly another residential or another B1 use. And so the 25-foot would give a good happy medium here, but it wouldn't be your full 40 that you would necessarily need between industrial and the B2. Are there any other thoughts on this?
Well, I'm looking at the existing one. I would probably suggest TC with a, I think it's 25. You got, with the transitional commercial, you're backing up to both R1 and R2. So do you want to apply the same standard to both? And do it as a 25-foot semi-transparent?
Go down. Go down. So I would add a column between the R2 and the B1, and I would, for any of it backing up to any residential, I would do a 25.
Okay, so we would do 40-10, or 40-25-10 down the list?
Yes. That's adequate.
Is 10 enough? And what type do you want? Semi-transparent, opaque, or?
If it's a, I guess the other question for you is, do you want to further clarify if it's a transitional use that's residential, or if it's a transitional use that's commercial, or do you, for simplicity's sake, just want to call it transitional?
I would just call it transitional. Make it simple. It's not like there's a whole lot of it.
So the example of our current situation we have a 5-foot buffer. It definitely needs to be more than 5. It's a single row of plantings at that property. I would say at a minimum, a 10-foot transparent. I don't think opaque is necessary.
Well, we've got B2, which is the less,
So the way it would read is if you're proposing, I guess here's something to think about. If you're proposing, when I look at this, on the left-hand side, proposed use, if it's commercial, transitional commercial, I would go to the commercial middle one. And then I would go over and say, based on the surrounding uses, here's your requirement.
I don't think there's going to be any argument about industrial or commercial. I think 40 and 10 opaque screen works for those two, right?
I agree.
I think the question is, where do you want to split the baby on the residential? It would seem
I
to me
would
the
do-
closest thing is B2, because it's less.
I would do a 25 transparent, and the reason I say that is the corner property on St. Paul and Washington is zoned for transitional commercial. It is currently sitting for sale. And if somebody were to come in and possibly tear that historic structure down and build a new structure, at least a 25-foot transparent screen would give some vegetation there on the property between them and the residential home behind them.
I can live with 20 or 25, to be honest with you.
Okay. I mean, you'll have general setbacks from the proposed building anyway, if they put in a small parking lot, and this is just if they were to do a commercial building. If they were to put in a small parking lot, they have to do parking lot landscaping. Do either of the other commissioners, chairman, Mr. Hallett, do you guys have any questions or
Still
thoughts?
trying to get back into the email.
Oh.
We also need to add TS to the definitions below it, because it's not there.
Yes, I will change TC to read TS.
I would prefer that we have 25-foot buffers, because every so often, or more frequently than not, we have an SUP to cut the buffer. So I think 25 as opposed to 20 where it's getting cut to 15. Or potentially 15.
Okay. So 25 transparent, any
Real quick, any reason why I can log in at home with my credentials, but I can't get in here? Because I was all over the website today.
Are you, when you check your email from home, do you go to the website and then log in via the website?
Yes.
So if you go to the main website and scroll to the very, very bottom of the page, in the left-hand corner, do you see the button for mail down there?
Yes, webmail.
Yeah. Does that work for you?
That's right.
As long as we're sitting here with buffers, I know this, you've had some issues with this. Are there any particular varieties you want eliminated
A
from the
lot.
planning list?
Yes.
Because I know I've got some.
I'm going to go through it. We have one or two non-native species listed. Actually, just so you guys know, hopefully this summer she'll be joining us, but we have a planning intern, Samantha, who's actually watching on the website, so you guys can wave in the camera to her if you want. But she's going to help us do a lot of the research. And so she's watching tonight to kind of get her footing with what we're doing, and then she's going to help us get through the zoning text amendments. So, like one of the items I'm going to have her do is research all of these plants listed and which ones are native, which ones are not native, which ones are recommended. It has since changed. I think this was just a quick drop-in. If you'll scroll down a little bit on canopy trees, that's good. So they've listed some, just for common knowledge, an American sycamore, if you don't get the right plant and you put in the, female variety, you're gonna have those terrible sycamore seed pods all over, and we're calling that a great parking street buffer tree. While they look nice, it's not something we really want to deal with long-term. We have a couple others. Red maples, while they're absolutely beautiful, they do have some problems with roots and tearing up sidewalks and parking lots and driveways. So we're going to look into this, and I will definitely bring back a list. But if you have them right now, go ahead and tell me which ones you want to see
I'm just worried about
struck.
the evergreens that always die,
Yes,
and the Japanese maples, which always die, beautiful as they are.
and a lot of, I think you also have a lot of silver maples that get put in the wrong place. They need a lot of water, and they also will die. I don't think that one's listed, though.
I don't think I've seen a sassafras tree this far north, ever.
They are native.
Had them in Colonial Heights, I've never seen one here.
Did you know if you break a twig off, it smells like
Yes,
Fruit Loops?
brush your teeth with it, too.
Yes. We're also going to go through shrubbery. I would like to provide a couple more options. I do know that we have a lot of site plans that come in, and some of our landscape architects are not happy with our list. They want more options. And I think as long as it's native, we should be relatively open to it. We do need to discuss the crepe myrtle.
Which is not currently on the list, correct?
It is not currently on the list. It is not native to our area, but it is now dubbed our street tree. All of the existing hawthorns were torn out on Washington Street and replaced with a crepe myrtle. They're of the dark pink reddish variety. It is very nice. It is very pretty. In the spring, it'll look very nice, but
It's high maintenance.
we do need to talk about, if we expect to have that going forward on Washington Street as we have infill, do we want to add it to the zoning ordinance so that what currently exists marries up with the ordinance?
We'll have a lot of crepe myrtles and a lot of subdivisions.
We do. Haymarket Station and definitely has a lot of them. So while it's not per se a recommended by all landscape architects, I will probably add it under the ornamentals just based on what our previous subdivisions have done.
So going back to the screening and buffer yard matrix, everybody's okay with 40, 10, and 25 then?
Yes, and I have 40 opaque, 10 opaque, 25 transparent.
And you're gonna fix TC to TS?
Correct. And then I will go through our plant list of everything we have to include our ground covers. I wouldn't necessarily consider spring bulbs to be a ground cover, but I guess clover, spectrum.
Can you run this by Ed the arborist? What's his
Ed
last name?
Millhouse, yes, I can. I also have a couple contacts in the forestry department at Virginia Tech that I'm happy to run it through as well.
Yeah, because as I recall, Virginia Tech was trying to dissuade jurisdictions from planting certain things because they were
Yes.
becoming a real issue.
Yes.
I just never looked into what exactly they were.
Yes, and we also definitely have a resource within our local co-op that would be able to get us in direct contact to help with some of these smaller ground covers, plants, and those items. So yes, I will see if Mr. Millhouse would be willing to help us out, as he is a resident there on Jefferson Street and very knowledgeable with arboretums, arbor stuff, forestry. Moving forward, if you guys don't have any other questions right now on landscaping, infrastructure, I think this is one that we can start discussing and or send you guys home with some homework on it. So the infrastructure section goes into quote unquote other requirements that site developers would need to meet that aren't in the B1, R1 sections above. So we have things in here such as the open space for residential, non-residential, maintenance, streetscape requirements. So that is one that I wanted to talk with you guys about. We currently only have bike racks at the park. Is this something that we really want to get into under furnishings? So section 58-18.6, item 2. Furnishings, we require lights, benches, trash receptacles, bike racks, and trees.
You're seeing more and more of that as an absolute requirement in most jurisdictions as part of the transportation plan. Now, whether it belongs as a front, I can't think of a better place to put it than bike racks, but, I mean, than this particular section, although I am kind of curious why a tree is regarded as a furnishing, but
I believe specifically it's the street trees.
and we don't have,
And I mean, these are all things that, so that you guys are aware, long-term, once they're put in the right-of-way, we maintain them. So VDOT is not going to maintain anything above their level of standard. So our brick sidewalks are not VDOT's level of standard product. We go above and beyond, and so we're required to maintain all of our brick sidewalks. The lights, because they're the ornate green lights, we are also responsible for the maintenance of those. The benches, those also are maintenance. We typically, some of the neighborhoods have put them in. I believe Haymarket Station put those in that they have. I don't think that was part of the town project. And then like Food Lion, there are some benches down there at the old Food Lion, but we too have put in some benches. We have some right out front and at the park that are there in the grass. Trash receptacles, we have placed those along Washington Street. Our maintenance man goes out and empties those weekly, so those are as well our maintenance. Same thing with the trees. Every time one of those trees dies, gets hit by a car, you know, it's our responsibility to replace it and maintain it. So I guess I would just ask, if we're expecting bike racks, kind of where would we expect them to go? Is this something we expect down on the sidewalk? Is this something we want to request up near the building? I understand that we want to encourage other modes of transportation, whether it's walking, biking, but just realistically.
Typically, they appear with the commercial development that is developed with frontage on the streetscape. So, for example, Milladon should have had a requirement for bicycle racks. I don't know if they've got it there or not.
I do not believe that they do.
That should have been part of the streetscape language, or the requirements for when the original site plan, I mean, do they even have a site plan, or is it just a GDP?
They have an approved site plan that was approved in 2019
Okay.
timeframe.
You could skip down to 5818.9. I think one of the things you guys are gonna have to do before we get to this section for a thorough review is deal with C. If we're gonna make a switch.
So maybe let me get the commission's thoughts on this. One of the items that we've been discussing is that as you walk up and down our sidewalks on Washington Street, some of the brick has long-term not been maintained properly, and we're currently having issues, and a lot of it doesn't match. And so one of the suggestions was, with the hotel going in across the street, they're about to replace all of their block, pretty much, of brick sidewalk, and then they're going to add one in down Jefferson and down Fayette. So did we want to take the opportunity, the original thought was, did we want to take the opportunity to replace the sidewalk in front of the museum and the small piece by the museum parking lot with brick? Or did we want to do a test case where we tried out a different product of stamped concrete? So we've kind of been looking at some of these options up here on the screen that Chris just brought up, and just generic stamped concrete brick patterns. We would pick out the soldier, let's see, trying to think of the name of it. The herringbone pattern with the soldier course. We could go with a simple herringbone pattern that has the soldier course along the edging. Long-term maintenance of this, you would be able to take out the sections of stamped concrete and replace, one section at a time. You wouldn't have necessarily as many issues with leveling as we do now. Yeah, we have a lot of trip hazards. In one particular area near the Baptist church, we have a lot of loose bricks. So do you guys have any thoughts on that? You guys certainly look at all the site plans, and you certainly look at all the ones here on Washington Street where this would be a requirement. So do you guys?
I'd rather see stamped concrete. These singular bricks are a maintenance nightmare.
Yes.
When the ground falls, they're constantly uneven. The sand gets washed out by heavy rains. I mean, in theory, it looks good, but stamped concrete would give you the same look and far less maintenance.
We also have 3 different types of brick out there at least, if not 4.
At least. Okay, so I will.
I worked
Go ahead.
landscaping one summer, and just the amount of little projects that we had to just fix patios and stuff, just from being warped or whatever, and the cost that these people paid for it, I'm with these guys. I think from a cost standpoint, it'd be easier just to go with.
Okay. I appreciate you guys weighing in. We will be talking about that probably again tomorrow night at the Architectural Review Board to see how they are feeling about it as well. And then we'll go from there.
Are they gonna get into the street trees as well?
I do not have them slated for that tomorrow night. I want to take them the historic section and design standards and the street trees probably in March, April. Tomorrow night, we're focusing on a training with them.
I'd be curious what their position is on reducing the size of the historic district again.
I will also bring that up. The lighting, are you guys still, and this will be an ARB thing, but certainly would like to hear your weigh in. The fluted post that is Hanover green. Is that still a okay look? Maybe one of the reasons I'll explain that I'm asking, it is becoming increasingly difficult to acquire these poles. Last year, we actually had 3 of them run over in the span of about 2 weeks. So we learned very quickly how long it takes to get them in. It takes 3 to 4 months to get them in. They're definitely at a high price. And then a lot of the ones that we currently have, we've been doing a lot of work on them, but the maintenance is something you have to keep up with. And since we don't have a public works department, we are relying heavily on a contractor to come in and work on these. But if you notice, next time you go out in the daylight, all the ones in the first 2 blocks of Washington to Madison, Fayette to Madison, you'll see are the older, faded style. And then as you get further down by the park, we have the newer ones with that most recent Washington Street pedestrian improvement project. So there are other options. We can, look into transitioning our poles to a similar fluted pole that's black. We can explore other ideas and bring them to you guys as well as the ARB, but just something to put on your radar as well.
You also need to change the trash receptacle since we bought different ones for COVID, or is that separate?
The different ones for COVID are actually ones to be located entirely in the park and on the museum property that match with what was already existing park tables. The older style are those Hanover green ones, and the ones that we purchased for COVID money are the same green.
Okay.
Emily, I have a question.
Yes.
If we do end up replacing the lighting, will they all have to be in uniform and the same, or?
Ideally, yes, but what we would probably present to the council is a transition plan. So this is just like totally, off the cuff here. If we were to go with, let's say, a black fluted option, one of the shortcomings we might present is we'll replace X number of them, and all the other ones maybe spray painted black with a plan to replace them in increments. It would be something that we would also go to the council and ask for in the CIP, so the capital improvements plan. And that's something we would run through our council liaison to take up to them and say, we're looking at doing this project. So it's kind of our wish list of funding, in a sense, if you want to think of it that way. And that's somewhere that we could say, long-term, we have 84 lights currently. If we get ahead of it and we want to change it, there are plans. So the hotel, before they go and put theirs in, we can capture 4 or 5, right? And then, we can find Crossroads Village before they go in, we would capture like another 10. But we do have 84 that would ultimately need to be replaced.
How hard are they to get now? Is it a manufacturing issue?
Yes, so they stopped manufacturing this one here, this exact spec that's in here, they've stopped manufacturing. So we have a very similar spec that we now give to our developers. And they know, thankfully, we have found somebody relatively local that they can source them from. But even then, they're having to fly them in, I think, internationally right now. And it's not just a COVID thing. I do want to clarify that. This has been ongoing since 2018 is really when we started noticing that there was issues acquiring them. On the flip side, I think we would max out at about 110. So we're pretty close. If we're already at 84, we are pretty close. But every time we put those banner arms up, or not banner arms, the banner arms stay on the pole. And typically we have 4. We have 2 that point into the street and we have 2 that point into the property. But every time we put those banners up, they act like sails because you get a strong wind down Washington Street. And so it's blowing the poles and ultimately they're rocking loose on the bottom, but also the banner arms themselves are seeing stress. So the people we have to put those banners up say that we're probably looking at having to replace all the arms soon anyway.
Just to shear up the light pole is gonna be between 5 and 10,000.
Yes.
That's what.
And then banner arms per pole are about $600 per pole. And that's just for two on one side. So it's not cheap.
Yeah.
It looks nice. And you guys don't have to give me an answer tonight. You know, when you drive through town the next month, take a look, you know, see what you guys think. Maybe you guys have different suggestions we aren't thinking about. But definitely take a look. They might just need some TLC, and we might have to find somebody who can paint our faded ones green again, you know? Do you guys have any other parts? I know tonight was a little unique with our scheduling, but do you have any other parts that you want to start talking about right now? Or do you guys want to take the next 15 minutes to transition and get ready for the public hearing?
Works for me.
I would say we just should do a hard stop.
Okay. So, next month then, what we're gonna come back with is we're gonna pick it up right at the B1. I'm gonna tell you what section, give me 1 second.
I think we were literally at the beginning of B1.
Yes, so we're gonna pick up at Article 10, so section 58-10. So if you guys will look through, excuse me, look through section 10 and 11, B1 and B2, and come ready to talk about the use regulations, special uses, and the different restrictions and regulations for those zoning districts.
That's gonna be on the
Yes, thank you. That will be on,
15th, right? Or no, it'll be on the
yes,
8th.
no, you're correct. March 15th, the third Monday at 6 PM.
And you're gonna bring forth a new matrix for the other stuff? For the buffer yard to insert?
Yes, so what I'm going to do is, I apologize, we're switching computers, so I have an old and a new. So the working documents on my old one, I'm going to take the time tomorrow to create a Google Drive, and I'm going to send it to everybody so that you guys can access the working document. All I ask is if you change anything in there, make it known that it's you changing it, and we will kind of review things, but don't get offended if I delete it out at our next meeting. So we'll work on it together. I'm trying to treat the working document as items we've agreed to. And then that way, when we have our full draft, it's a little bit easier for everyone to understand. So you'll get that file tomorrow.
Why
And
don't you create a secure master then?
I'll always, yeah,
There you go.
I'll lock it for sure. So in the meantime, if you guys have any questions about it, let me know.
Okay.
Okie dokie. So we'll call that the end of the work session, and we will take the next few minutes. Just remember, no talking in groups of 3. But if you have questions about the public hearing, projects, agenda items, let me know, and I'll help you out.
I gotta go to the phone call.
You're gonna read the letter from the folks that, the one
Yes.
couple that wrote in?
Yes, I will print a copy for each of you to have up there, but I will read it into the record.
I've got it in my email. You don't need to bother with mine. She sent it to me for some reason.
Where it stands right now, they have an approved site plan, but they're looking for the SUPs to reconfigure it. Because we've talked about this project for, I don't know how many years.
Almost 3.
Let me